When's the last time something hit you? Out of nowhere. Something truly new. A century ago, a Russian painter threw a bomb into the art world. His name was Kazimir Malevich, and his painting was Black Square. At first, it didn't look like much. Just a black square on a white background. But look again. The painter took Western abstract art and hypercharged it. Black Square was beyond abstract. It represented nothing tangible, nothing real, nothing but itself. 100 years later, the Russians have done it again. Not on canvas, but all around us. This isn't a story about art. This is the story of how one Russian turned reality inside out, everywhere.
He created this state of mind, this populism which brought in Trump, Brexit, political spectacle which didn't represent anything real.
Welcome to the Puppet Master. He's pulling your strings. This story begins not in Russia, but next door, in Ukraine. It's February 2014. Protesters occupy the central square in the capital, Kiev. It's bitterly cold. Demonstrators warming themselves around a giant cauldron of bubbling borscht. Surrounding the protest camp, rows of black-clad riot police, shivering behind their metal shields. The demonstrators are demanding integration with Europe. The government is loyal to its patrons in Moscow. For 2 months now, they've been frozen in limbo. But the ice is about to crack.
It's unpredictable, absolutely unpredictable situation.
Valentin Nalivaychenko. He's a protest leader and a member of parliament.
Gabriel, you were here as well in Kiev. You remember this? It was, again, one more cold, grey day. Thousands of law enforcement, specially equipped, around you, around me as well.
On February the 20th, I'm woken by the sound of gunfire. From my hotel balcony, I see a protester lying face down in a pool of fresh blood. 2 comrades rush up, they grab his legs, and they drag him off feet first. Out on the streets, security forces are shooting at protesters, most of whom are armed only with baseball bats. Now, the shooting is going on at street level, but suddenly, something catches my eye, high up in one of the tall buildings surrounding the square. What is that?
Huh?
That window, facing directly to us.
Yeah.
Fuck! Okay, get the fuck out of here. Somewhere on the upper floors, other gunmen are hiding, and they seem to be shooting at both sides. By the end of it, more than 75 people were dead. Today, the street where the shootings happened has been turned into a memorial. There are portraits of those who were killed hanging from trees on the spot where they fell. The massacre set off a chain of events that would ripple out from Kiev, through Crimea and eastern Ukraine, and end with Russia and the West, eyeball to eyeball, in a new and unfamiliar world. Facts were irrelevant. Narrative was everything. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because here's the weird thing. Back on the square, the security forces, with their apparently superior firepower, had vanished. Soon after, so did the pro-Russian president. Suddenly, the protesters were in charge. Power had changed hands. and at a late-night session, Parliament appointed Valentin Nalyvaichenko as Ukraine's new spy chief. He went straight to headquarters.
Oh, it was an unforgettable night. The main building stood empty. Plus, in the backyard, I found burned files, burned tapes, burned materials. I understood that the security service is in ashes.
Did that come as a shock to you?
Yes, of course. I never even imagined how deep our national security is broken, destroyed, and infiltrated by Russia.
Ukrainian intelligence had been totally hollowed out, taken over, turned into a zombie agency, acting not in the interests of Ukraine, but in those of Russia. So, job one, recruit a new counterintelligence service and piece together the events leading up to the shootings on the square. One bit of evidence the previous regime hadn't managed to destroy was recordings of government snipers on the day.
They were communicating among themselves using the walkie-talkie and radios. One pair of snipers were unknown for all other snipers. They were reporting that unknown sniper is working, what to do. And when this unknown sniper stopped shooting, they all received an order to get back from their positions.
Who were those snipers? Some sort of third force, bent on sowing chaos and confusion? For a whole year, that question remained a mystery. Events were moving fast. The following week, soldiers in uniform but without insignia took over the Crimean Peninsula on Ukraine's Black Sea coast. They became known as Little Green Men, as if somehow they'd appeared from Mars. Of course, that was nonsense. I was there. They were Russian soldiers and everyone knew it. Moscow's denials weren't really designed to be believed. They were an act of theatre. Then, on the anniversary of the massacre in Kiev, Ukraine's new president, Petro Poroshenko, made a startling announcement. Behind all the shootings, he said, one man was pulling the strings.
Що помічник президента Росії Vladislav Surkov керував організацією снайперських груп.
The assistant to the president of Russia, Vladislav Surkov, led the organization of foreign sniper groups.
Surkov? A PR man turned political operator. He was variously known as Putin's Rasputin, the Grey Cardinal, or the unseen hand behind the Kremlin's grip on power. Vladislav Surkov is the central character in this story. He is Mr. Black Square.
We know for sure that he was in Ukraine exactly 20th and 21st of February.
The 20th was the day when all of the shooting happened on the square. And what was Surkov's role?
We believe that he was guiding and he's providing the control of all events here in Kiev and in Ukraine. I mean precisely on what and how Ukrainian law enforcement and special services are acting against protesters.
Surkov is a master manipulator. Myths multiply around him like bacteria in a petri dish. But we thought he was a has-been. He'd fallen from favor, disappeared from view. So what was he up to in Ukraine? A month after the snipers and the takeover of Crimea, the Little Green Men were back. In a new theatre, eastern Ukraine, a region called Donbass, along the border with Russia. Moscow wanted us to believe that this was a conflict between Kiev's new pro-Western government and local Ukrainian separatists. But again, that's not entirely true. Some were Ukrainian, but some definitely weren't. So who was pulling those strings? I was in Donetsk, and I went to meet the leader of the separatists, a man who called himself the Prime Minister of the Donetsk People's Republic. His name was Alexander Borodai. I'm from Moscow, he told me then. The man heading this local uprising was, in fact, a Russian citizen. And just like Surkov, he'd come from the world of PR. Now, that was 5 years ago. Today, Mr. Borodai is back home in Moscow. I found him eating steak in a restaurant called Butcher's, overlooking the Kremlin.
Periodically, I did meet with Vladislav Surkov when I travelled to Moscow. I sometimes think of him as an actor, alone on the stage. There he is, I'm watching his show, and at the same time, I'm learning from him.
What exactly did you learn?
The art of talking to people, the art of politics, the art of the possible.
The art, perhaps, of deception.
It's not a conflict between Russia and so-called Ukraine, because Ukraine always was and still is a part of the Russian world. This is a conflict, unfortunately, between Russia and the Western world.
The war in Ukraine is now one of the flashpoints in global politics. Summits, peace talks. We're on the big stage now. And who do the Russians send to represent them? That's right, Mr. Black Square.
We've had 4 meetings. He is extremely smart. He is very well informed across the board.
Kurt Volker, United States Special Representative for Ukraine.
He also has a strong interest in culture, in music, in writing. He has a very good sense of humor.
And in these meetings between East and West, the Russian likes to school his American counterpart in Western popular culture.
Generals gathered in their masses, just like
We've had a couple of conversations, and he knows more about Western heavy metal music than I do, for sure.
What's with the heavy metal, I wonder? Is this just diplomatic small talk, chit-chat to break the ice? Or is there something else going on?
He does say in the course of meetings things that I think he and I both know are not true.
Wait, that's extraordinary. So you're sitting there in a meeting, he's saying something that you know isn't true and that you think he knows isn't true.
Of course. Russia's narrative on this is they blame the U.S. because Russia's facing these kind of external enemies there.
Are the enemies real?
No, of course not. It is a device to create the support for an authoritarian system by saying, okay, we have external enemies, even if the enemies are not really there.
Phantom realities.
Yeah, exactly.
But here's the thing. Surkov's phantoms have a habit of coming alive with deadly consequences. Next time on The Puppet Master, we go back to the beginning and we meet a man from nowhere.
Какие-то устраивались. Your heart is at his house on the outskirts of Moscow. Wherever you looked, all the shelves were packed with dolls, dolls, dolls.